Hi students, Mr. C here. What I'd like to talk to you today about is different types of adhesives and working with veneer. As you know, we're working on our advanced CNC project that has to do with veneering a substrate like MDF. MDF is typically the common substrate used in industry. It's not always the one, but I would say more than the greater majority of the time they're using MDF to glue veneer to. So what I'd like to do is just talk about these different glues that we have in front of us and what one is the best one for us to use for this application of our project. Now, as you're well aware, we use the PVA or yellow glue all the time. For basic furniture construction and joinery, that is one of the better ones to use. But in this application, let's explain some of the differences between the different types of adhesives. So this canister right here, this is a spray contact adhesive that's used. I know that some of you have seen this and some of you have not. We use this on a project for a student that used some exotic veneers that had a phenolic backer, and this worked out really, really well, but it's not always useful for all types of veneers. So let's just talk about this contact adhesive. It's great for using it for laminates or something that has a backer, like your laminate that you might see on the old school countertops, stuff like that. This is a great application for that. There are some other ones, but this is mainly the one that we'd be using it for. You could use it, like I said, with veneer that has a backer on it, because that way it will go ahead and apply to that. But you also have to be aware of is if the environment that it's going into, if it's going to be very hot, it's not going to work out that well, because when this dries, it's very, very soft and very flexible. And you don't want delamination to happen in a project, especially if you spend all that time cutting and milling and making sure everything fit properly and then installing it. You want to make sure that it is right. So make sure that you check that your environment would be okay for this type of application of using a contact adhesive. It is no good if it has water get into it, and like I said, heat is a major factor with using contact adhesive. You don't want to use this, okay? Another type of glue that we can use or is available to us is like your PVA Yellow Glue, you know, construction glue, carpenter's glue, the one that you see pretty much everywhere. This type of glue, it's great for certain applications, okay? But let's just talk about the pros real quick. It's great for your typical woodworking, putting wood like a dovetail joint together or a mortise and tenon together or a butt joint or something like that. It's a great, great, great joint for that, for indoor uses only. Okay, I would not use a yellow glue for something that's going to go outdoors, because it's just going to fail eventually. If you do buy the waterproof type yellow glue, it's still going to become soft. So I would not recommend using that in an outdoor application, okay? But in a veneering application, I would absolutely not use a yellow glue, just because I don't want to have a product delaminate or have other issues that can happen with the yellow glue. Like yellow glue, it's soft and flexible even after it's cured. It's no good with heat and water. Just isn't going to work out very well. You have something called bleed through, that the glue will come through the veneer itself, and then it'll affect your finishes, and you don't want that to happen. Also, yellow glue, it's not going to work with in an oily type veneer. Like for instance, this veneer here, this is all Macassar ebony. So it's a flitch of Macassar ebony. This has an oily surface to it. Like rosewood is one, this is another one. What we have to do before we glue is we run this through what they call a solvent bath, and we wipe it down with a solvent, and then we can go ahead and then we wait for that to dry, and then we go ahead and we can glue our oily veneer to a surface. But yellow glue would not fit that application. It's just not going to work out for us, okay? Also, if you have grain glue veneers that are going in many different directions, whether it's something like what we're doing here, or it happens to be like a burled wood, like this here, yellow glue is not going to work out real well. And yellow glue will bleed through this surface very, very quickly. Okay, so let's not use a yellow glue whenever we're figuring out we're working with veneers. Okay. The next one is epoxy resin. Epoxy resin has some serious pros to it, but there are some cons, like everything else. There's always pluses and minuses to everything we have to weigh out. With epoxy resin, it is a nice chemical reaction type finish, adhesive, but it dries really, really hard. Water does not soften it. Heat doesn't really affect it, but it will bleed through greatly on a veneer, and the expense is incredibly high for working with veneers. So using this type of adhesive, I don't think would be great for this application. It'd be very, very pricey. And also you can work with oily woods with this, and it will bond because it is a chemical reaction adhesive, and it will go ahead and hold like a veneer like the Macassar ebony down. But like I said, I think the expense is there where you could there's some other options that you could use that are better. Okay, polyurethane glue. This glue right here. This happens to be one of them. This is a brand name, cover it up. But this is mainly designed for exterior use. It foams up. Some of the pros are, it is a chemical reaction adhesive. It dries very, very hard. Water and heat really don't affect it. You could use it on an oily grain or an oily species of material, but it foams up, and you don't want to have that happening with your veneer, and also you'll have tremendous amounts of bleed through. It's just not a real good choice for this application that we're going to be using for our advanced project, using different veneers and in designing them in a decorative way. I think the best option for us is a urea glue. Now you can buy urea glue in a powder, or you can buy it in a liquid. I bought it in a powder just because the situation that we're in this year is I don't know when you're going to be coming back to class. So I went ahead, instead of buying the liquid like I typically do, I bought a powder where we can mix it. Once we mix this, I know the manufacturer says you have like 90 days or something like that, but like basically what I want to do is I want to mix the amount that we need for the job at hand. Okay, now pros and cons to using the urea glue. All right, now it is a chemical reaction. It dries extremely hard. Water does not affect it. It still stays extremely hard, even in water and in heat. Now granted, we're not going to be throwing this stuff out in 130 degrees constantly, but heat won't really affect the bonding of this veneer to the substrate. We should be okay. As you know, some of you are trying to make the National Fair in Las Vegas every other year, and some of you are doing things where you're working with